What's up, people? It's James from Lucrative MMA. I'm back to drop some more knowledge on you. And this week we're doing we're going to do the 10th edition of the Lucrative MMA Betting Podcast. 10 episodes deep, 10 weeks of content, 10 weeks of free advice. And if you are a new listener and you don't know what we do on this podcast, I basically will be going over 3 segments. So there's 3 segments on this podcast. The first segment is the most exciting fight of the night. And obviously that's for the upcoming UFC card, which is Cody Garbrandt versus Rob Font. So I'll be doing the most exciting fight on the card, which is always a tough one to pick. And then I do the most inaccurate betting line on the card. That's always a tough one to pick. And then I do the main event, right? And I basically give my prediction for the main event. I give my prediction for all of the fights that I go over. And as you know, it's a betting podcast, right? So I'm a professional sports bettor, right? I grew up around the sports betting industry and I have about 10 years experience in betting on sports. And this is an MMA podcast. I'm going to be speaking about all the fights, but I also will break them down from a betting perspective, right? Because as you know, if you want to make money long-term in sports betting, it's not just about picking winners. In fact, it's not really about picking winners at all. It's about taking advantage of market inefficiencies like it is in any other way of making money when you invest your money, right? You want to take advantage of a market inefficiency. And good thing for us, even though MMA is the craziest sport in the world with the most variance by far, in my opinion, the market is also very inefficient a lot of the time. And there is a few inefficient lines this weekend, and I will actually be telling you about one very soon. So I'm going to get straight into it. If any of you want to sign up to my handicapping service, you can make money long-term from MMA. I will make you money long-term from MMA. I'm third-party tracked on betmma.tips, so I cannot fake my record. All you need to do is go on my website, lucrativemmabetting.com. All the links will be in the bio, in the description box, wherever you're reading this. And you can check out my results and everything like that. Yeah, I've been earning money for the last 3 years for other people, and I've been earning money for the last 6 years on MMA myself. So we have a long history. We're up 30 units this year already. Last year we won 60 units. The year before that we won 99 units. So that's it, guys. Without further ado, I'll get straight into the podcast. And the first fight I'm going to be talking about is the most exciting fight of the night, right? This is always hard for me to pick. And actually, I've gone with a little bit of a different spin on things this week. And I'll explain exactly what I mean. So the fight I've picked this week, it isn't necessarily what I think is going to be the most exciting fight in terms of action, but there's a few different aspects to why I think it's going to be exciting. So just a couple of fights that I thought I might pick and I didn't go with. Obviously, Cody Garbrandt and Rob Font, we know that's going to be a great fight. I think it's almost impossible for that not to be a good fight. But as I always talk about the main event anyway, I can't include that in my most exciting fight. A couple others I was looking at: David Dvorak versus Raulian Paiva. The flyweight is flyweight is my favorite division. The flyweights are my favorite fighters, so that's always in the running to be the most exciting fight on the card for me personally, right? But there's a few others. Obviously, we got Edmund Shabazian versus Jack Hermansson. I don't think Edmund Shabazian is ever in a boring fight. He's kind of kill or be killed. If he doesn't get that first round knockout, a lot of times he does get stopped. Bill Algeo Ramos should be a good fight. I mean, I'm just going down the card, and a lot of these fights are good, So as you can tell, it's always hard for me to pick. The fight I've gone with, it's a bit of a weird one. It's Damir Ismagulov versus Rafael Alves, right? And I'll tell you exactly why I've gone for this fight. So Damir Ismagulov is a very, very high-level lightweight. He's got 3 fights in the UFC. He's won all 3. He's beat Joel Alvarez. He's beat Thiago Moises, who obviously is surging at the moment. Just got a huge win over Alexander Hernandez. He's creeping into that top 10, top 15. Thiago Moises is. And he also had another win in the UFC. The name escapes me. Before that, he's on something crazy like a 15-fight winning streak coming into the UFC. He's only ever lost once. That was like his 6th or 7th fight. He's 21-1, I believe, 23-1. It's a very good record for Damir Ismagulov, right? He's a very highly touted prospect, a Russian prospect, and he's basically touted to do big things in the UFC, and I think he will. I think he's definitely a top 10 lightweight already right now, and he could potentially even move into that top 5, which is stacked at the moment. It's probably the most talked about division. We've got Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler, Dan Hooker's, on the outside of that. Beneil Dariush just crashed into it. One of my favorite fighters. Tony Ferguson, he's definitely falling out of it now. We've got Justin Gaethje there. We've got Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor. They're fighting soon. I mean, some high-level fighters, very high-level fighters. And Demetrius Magulov, I believe he belongs in with the fighters I've just spoke about. Now, is he going to beat them? Is he better than them? That remains to be seen, right? But I do think he definitely is in that top 10 now, and I think at some point he definitely could push into that top 5. So that's one of the reasons why this is the most exciting matchup for me, right? Because I'm really excited, right, to see Demetrius Magulov. So it's an exciting matchup for that. Now, I don't think it's going to be a boring fight either, right? Because he's fighting this dude called Rafael Alves. Now, Rafael Alves is a Brazilian dude, as you can probably tell by his name. And he's a kill or be killed fighter, man. The guy is a bit crazy. I mean, his skill set is solid, but he's very fragile. I mean, I've seen him get stopped via injuries more than once. I've seen him get tapped out a couple of times. He has gassed out in fights I've seen as well. So he's a fighter where his skill sets are super dangerous, like extremely dangerous. This guy will throw spinning elbows. This guy will throw flying knees. This guy will throw running axe kicks, which you don't see a lot, right? He'll throw anything, really. He's very, very dynamic. I mean, his flexibility is ridiculous. He's probably trained capoeira in the past. I mean, the way he moves, he's very fluid. And then off his back, he's dangerous as fuck. He's got that X factor, right? So he could probably be anyone in the octagon, right? There are some fighters that they'll never be able to beat a certain fighter. But I think Rafael Alves is, and I'm going to get a lot of shit for saying this because he's plus 450, right? I didn't mention that, the betting line. Demetrius Magulov is a minus 600 favorite. This guy, Rafael Alves, he's probably not even that like UFC level, but he could still beat anyone in the UFC, in my opinion. And look, at the end of the day, anyone can beat anyone, right? But there are just some fighters. I don't really know. I don't want to shit on anyone. Someone like Joel Alvarez, right? Joel Alvarez, he's never going to beat Dustin Poirier. Do you know what I mean? Like, no matter how many times they fight, okay, he definitely will. If they fight a million times, he will win a couple. But you know what I'm saying? But this Rafael Alves dude, even though he's, not as good as Joel Alvarez, in my opinion, because he's so dynamic, there's always a chance of him hitting a spinning wheel kick on someone or a flying knee or, a guillotine, because he's just extremely dynamic, right? So Demetrius Magulov is a minus 600 favorite. I don't think he should be minus 600. That's probably a little bit too wide. I do think he's going to have his way with Rafael Alves in this fight. But it's kind of funny because I do think that he's going to, I don't want to say he's going to come through some adversity, but I just don't think he's going to be plain sailing in this fight. He's been away for 2 years, right? So he might be, because he's such a cerebral fighter. He's a very clever guy. He reminds me of David Dvorak in a way. He's very process oriented, right? He's not like Rafael Alves at all, right? He won't throw crazy spinning shit. He won't move himself out of position. He'll pepper the jab there. He's got a great 1-2. He's got good boxing. He'll go for takedowns if he needs it. He won't risk position for submission if he is in top position. He's very process driven, right? He wins a lot of his fights via decision, and he's just a great fighter that you really want to bet on. He's one of the fighters that you love to bet on, right? You like to bet on these fighters that don't take unnecessary risk, someone like Islam Makhachev, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Gregor Gillespie even, right? You know what they're going to do, yeah? They're not going to put themselves in danger. Now, their skill set might not be there. Gregor Gillespie can get knocked out, of course, but just with his mindset, how he fights, he's not going to do anything stupid, Someone who I don't like to bet on is Andre Fili, because I don't think he's very good at, I don't think his fight IQ is very high level, but Demir, he's got a very high level fight IQ. So I expect him to, pepper the jab, not take too many, not take too many unnecessary actions, right, in the fight. But Rafael Alves is the opposite of that. So he's going to come out. He's going to be doing spinning elbows. He's going to be doing flying knees. I just feel like Damir Ismagulov's going to easily avoid that. But what I was saying earlier, the point was that I do think that because he's been out for 2 years, there is a possibility that he'll take a little while to adapt to the fight game again, right? And if he does take a while to adapt, it's not going to be good coming up against someone like Rafael Alves, because that guy, you want to be ready to go when you're fighting this guy. You want to be completely switched on. And the reason being is because he's so dynamic, because he throws so much wild shit. So it's not really a fight you want to be coming back to after 2 years of inactivity, in my opinion. But because the level difference is so extreme, I don't think it'll be too much of a problem for Damir Ismagulov, right? Yeah, so this is the most exciting fight because I'm so excited to see Damir back. I think he's one of the best prospects in the division. And also because Joel Alvarez is absolutely... Rafael Alves is definitely a fun TV, right? He's kind of like Michel Pereira. He might not be a great fighter, but he's definitely must-watch TV. So even though I'm predicting Damir Ismagulov to win, I do expect Alves to have some moments. Now, he might not connect on them moments, but I do think he's going to throw spinning heel kicks. He's going to make it exciting, right? He's probably, if he gets taken down, he's probably going to jump on a guillotine. It might look tight for a second. He's a wild card in that. So I do think he's going to make the fight exciting. I just expect Damir Ismagulov to pepper him consistently, stay on the outside, stay away from all that crazy shit. Rafael Alves probably will slow down after a while, and then I expect Damir to win maybe via decision like he always does, or I actually could see Damir taking him out late. One thing to note is that Rafael Alves has he's been stopped in every single one of his losses, right? And he's got about 6 or 7 losses. So, that's always something to take notice of. Now, Damir isn't really a fighter that stops people, but he's kind of due a stoppage. I mean, he's won 3 fights in a row via decision, and I do think he's taken a step down here. I don't think Rafael Alves really is UFC level. I think his danger level is definitely UFC level. He's got as much, he's kind of like Charles Oliveira in the fact that he's got that X factor. He's just nowhere near Charles Oliveira, as a fighter, but he's got that X factor. So that's obviously always going to be UFC level. He can finish the fight at any moment, but just in general, his game, I don't think it's UFC level. So oftentimes when you get these fighters taking a big step down in competition, or, when there's a level difference, a class difference, and I will talk about that later as well on the next segment, the most inaccurate line on the card, often a stoppage does materialize, right? So I could actually see Damir Ismagulov just breaking him down. Rafael Alves gets tired, and Damir stops him late, right? So I'm going to actually predict Damir Ismagulov to win via 3rd round TKO. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to decision as well. But all in all, I do expect the Damir to get the win. But I do think Damir's going to have to come through some strange things, right? Stranger things, right? He's going to have to come through like axe kick attempts and spinning heel kicks and stuff like that. So I think that'll make it interesting. Wizard of Oz, shout out to you. Dimitri saying betting on Damir is just not worth it. If you think he wins by decision is minus 125. Fight goes to distance is minus 150. If you think he finishes plus 150 into yeah. So there we go. What you do now, you don't play him straight. You look at props, and a lot of people will be playing his decision line. I understand he's a decision fighter. But I'm more predicting a 3rd round finish, a later finish actually for Damir. And if it is plus money, I don't mind that bet, to be honest. I actually could see Damir getting him out of there. So that's it. That's the most exciting fight on the card. Now we'll get to the most inaccurate betting line on the card. Now this one is always an exciting one to talk about, right? Because as I say, I'm a sports bettor. I love watching MMA, but more than watching MMA, something I love more than watching MMA is making money while I watch MMA, right? And that's what we do every single week. That's what we do every single year. And the most inaccurate line on the card, it's interesting because by the time I do this podcast, which is usually on a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, it's towards the later end of the week. I've got a lot of my bets out at that point, and the lines have actually changed. So sometimes the most inaccurate betting line on Monday is not the most inaccurate betting line on Thursday. Almost actually every single time, the most inaccurate betting line I would choose on a Monday, or like on a Saturday before, it's not going to be the same as I give you on this podcast because the lines change so much. So that's the good thing about getting in early and doing tape study and tape research early, because the lines change a lot during fight week, right? So you always want to keep at least one card, in my opinion, at least one card ahead of the current schedule, right? So for example, I've already started taping next week's card, and I actually just sent out a pretty huge underdog play to all my members, and I locked it in myself a couple of hours ago. So, I'm about a week ahead, a week and a half ahead of the card, and that enables us to get better lines. And obviously over the course of a year, then better lines add up badly, because the bet I'm about to tell you now, we locked it in at plus 135, I believe, and it's actually plus 110 now. So, it might not seem much, but after a while, it definitely adds up, And then also, this is just one example, but we've got an underdog next week that I don't want to give it away, so I'm not going to tell you what odds we got, and I'm not going to tell you much about it. But I just believe that odds are going to change drastically, and I think we're going to get much better odds than it's going to go off at, right? Anyway, the most inaccurate betting line on the card. I'll just drink some water and then I'll get into it. Josh Ramnan Don is saying, I appreciate you, bro. Thanks, man. I appreciate you watching. Seriously. All right. The most inaccurate betting line on the card. Now, this is on the fight between, it's a prop bet, and this is the fight between Ben Rothwell versus Chris Barnett, right? Huggy boy, beast boy, Huggy Bear. He's coming into the UFC. So if you don't know who Chris Barnett is, definitely go and watch some of his fights, or maybe just watch his celebrations. They're very interesting. They're very exciting. What he'll do is, so he's a 5'9" heavyweight, right? Which is pretty crazy. I think Daniel Cormier was even like 5'10". So yeah, he's a 5'9" heavyweight. So he's got a lot of extra weight on him, a lot extra fat on him. And he's a very exciting dude in the fact that he will throw spinning shit sometimes, but mainly does like all that spinning stuff during his celebrations. So if he wins a fight, you'll see him doing like handstands, standing on his head, doing spinning jumps and like capoeira moves and crazy stuff like that. So he's definitely an interesting character. And yeah, he's getting a call up to the UFC here, fighting Ben Rothwell. And it's kind of funny because Ben Rothwell is like one of the biggest heavyweights in the UFC, and he's fighting probably the smallest heavyweight in the UFC. So it's definitely going to be interesting when they're in there. But Chris Barnett is not, he's not, he's not used to fighting big heavyweights, right? But I do think Ben Rothwell probably going to be one of the biggest heavyweights he's ever fought. Ben Rothwell is absolutely huge, He's like over 6'4". I think he's got like a 80+ inch reach. I mean, very, very big guy. Chris Barnett definitely will be extremely outsized here, and he's going to be out-leveled as well. I know Ben Rothwell's almost 40, he's 39 years old, but I think Ben Rothwell is by far a level above. And to be honest, going back through Chris Barnett's record, I think Ben Rothwell is the best fighter he's ever fought, right? Now, he is fighting a 39-year-old version of Ben Rothwell, but I don't think that's going to make too much difference. I mean, Ben Rothwell still looked decent against who did he fight last fight? It wasn't Tybura, was it? Was it Ty? I think it was Tybura. Might have been Tybura. He looked okay in that first round. He didn't look the worst. Obviously, Tybura kind of took over in the second round and third round. And then obviously before that, he beat OSP. Did get dropped twice in that fight, but he still beat OSP on the scorecard. So, it's not like he's just getting blown out of the water. I mean, he lost his last fight and won his one before. So, but obviously OSP was coming up from light heavyweight, but OSP is probably a bigger guy than Chris Barnett anyway, which is nuts, right? So anyway, Ben Rothwell, he's not completely shot is what I'm trying to say, right? And the most inaccurate line, I'm going to tell you, it is basically what it is that Ben Rothwell to win inside the distance at plus 110, right? It's currently plus 110. What I'll do is I'll check the odds. But just before I hopped on there, I checked the odds and it was plus 110. Okay, so it's funny that they've got that because the over is set at 1.5. And, under 1.5 rounds is plus 110. And then you're giving me Ben Rothwell inside the distance at plus 110. A little bit crazy in my opinion. Okay, so plus 110 is the best you're going to get. It's actually moved to like minus 125, minus 120 now. So this is what I said, right? It's like minus 120 on a lot of books. But when me and my members got this, it was like plus 130, I think we locked it in for. So that's a pretty huge difference in itself. This could even go off. I mean, the fights are 2 days away, so this could go off at minus 140 or something, right? And we got in at plus 130. So, I mean, that just shows you the benefit of betting early, right? So, yeah, look, I just think Ben Rothwell is due for a stoppage here. I mean, he's taken a huge step down in competition. And as I said when I was talking about Ismagulov versus Rafael Alves, when these fighters take a big step down in competition, often a knockout or a stoppage materializes even if they're usually decision fighters. And Ben Rothwell actually has become a decision fighter recently, right? He doesn't really have many knockouts in the last few years, but he's taken a big step down in competition here. Also, the size difference is extreme. And if you read the book Fightnomics, I don't have it here on me, but if you read the book Fightnomics, you will see that if a fighter, you will see that weight, size in general is the biggest predictor of a stoppage, right? It's not reach. It's not how many knockouts the fighter's had or anything like that. Them type of stats is actually weight and size. So Ben Rothwell's got a lot of weight on Huggy Bear and he's got a lot of size on Huggy Bear, right? So, I mean, they might even be the same weight. I'm not sure exactly what Huggy Bear weighs in at, but yeah, Rothwell's he's a mountain of a man and he's way bigger than Huggy Bear. So I do think a knockout will materialize and I do think it will come in the first round, to be honest. I think Rothwell will stop him in the first round. Now, look, he might go to decision like he always does, but I just think Ben Rothwell's going to stop Huggy Bear in the first round. I mean, he's coming in there on short notice, I believe, Chris Barnett. Ben Rothwell, he's a UFC veteran. He's got stoppage wins over some good fighters. I mean, he choked out Josh Barnett. Was it Josh Barnett? It is Josh Barnett, eh? He choked out Josh Barnett, and now he's fighting Chris Barnett. So he's going to knock out Chris Barnett, and he already choked out Josh Barnett. So, yeah, I think the most inaccurate betting line on this card, or one of them now, is, even though it's minus 125, plus 110 on some books, is Ben Rothwell to win inside a distance. So I think that's a good bet. Whether it lands or not, I think it lands way over 50%. And they're trying to tell me it lands, 48% or something. I mean, you got to be smoking. I mean, when we got it, it was like 45% indication, This is, you've got to say Ben Rothwell knocks this dude out 60% of the time. I mean, I'm being probably like 65% of the time this dude knocks Chris Barnett out, in my opinion. So I think Ben Rothwell's going to get a stoppage here. It's probably going to come in the first round. I think Ben Rothwell needs to understand that he just needs to put it on this guy and he will get him out of there. I've seen Huggy Bear knocked out before, more than once. I've seen him get knocked out in about 50 seconds. I think it was under a minute in the first round. So, it's not like he's got this iron chin. He's a lot smaller. I'll just be going through all the points I've already made if I continue. But the most inaccurate betting line on the card, Ben Rothwell to win inside the distance. There we go. Bang. All right. And sorry if the podcast is a little bit flat. I don't know if my energy is a little bit flat today, but I'm feeling it a little bit flat. I don't have too much energy now. So hopefully it's still coming across well on camera and on audio. And at the end of the day, the information is still getting put out there, which is the most important thing, right? So I'm going to go on to the main event now. And that is Rob Font versus Cody Garbrandt. I'll just quickly catch up with the chat, not too much. Anaconda saying Chris Barnett by inverted triangle. Yeah, maybe. Josh Ramnandon is saying, I've watched everyone and no one compared to how much I've been waiting for you to drop something. Thank you, bro. Appreciate that. I really do appreciate all the support. So the next fight I'm going to talk about, the main event, right? Exciting fight. We've spoke about that. Inaccurate line, we've done that. Main event, Rob Font versus Cody Garbrandt. I mean, this is like indicative of how the UFC sets things up, because the UFC has put on this main event and it's -110, right? It's a pick'em, which is so good. You know, we get to see these fights every single week that you just don't know, you know, what's going to happen. Last week we had Chandler versus Oliveira. That shit was so close. Chandler was this close away from winning the title. I think that was like a pick'em as well a lot of the time. Charles was a slight favorite most of the time. I think it might have went off a pick'em even. Chandler, such a small underdog. This fight is, you know, a pick'em. Next fight card we have is Sakai versus Rosenstruik. That's basically a pick'em. Rosenstruik's like -130. Then we've got Adesanya Vettori. Fair enough. That's a little bit widely lined. But the after that, we've got Korean Zombie versus Ige. That's a pick'em. After that, we've got Gain versus Volkov. And I'm talking about only the main events here. Gain versus Volkov. That's a pick'em, basically. +110, -140. Then after that, we've got Poirier McGregor. That's a pick'em. You think I'll be making this up? Then after that, we've got, they don't even have a headline for that. So, I mean, we're so lucky. I mean, if you're a boxing fan, right? If you're a hardcore boxing fan, what you do is you have to bet on like specific outcomes, like via KO, because if you just check the odds on the boxing fights, it's ridiculous. You know, like even this weekend, you got Taylor versus Ramirez, who's kind of like I'm sure it's pretty like a 50-50 matchup. I'm not too heavy into boxing, but I know more than most MMA fans, let's say, you know, your average MMA fan. And Taylor and Ramirez is a very close fight, but they've got Taylor at like a -300 favorite, which is ridiculous. If you get a -300 favorite in MMA, that's like, they better not lose. Like if they lose, that's embarrassing. But if Ramirez goes out there and beats Taylor this weekend, that's not going to be a big shock. Like most people, I think people are backing Taylor, but no one would be shocked if Ramirez beats Taylor this weekend. But Taylor's a -300 favorite. It just makes no sense, right? So, you know, we don't get that in MMA, right? We get fair lines, and we also get a lot of inaccurate lines as well, which is strange I'm saying that, but you could take advantage of them, which are really good, right? Anyway, that's another video for another day. But yeah, the main event, Rob Font versus Cody Garbrandt. So look, this is a hard fight to call, guys. I don't have a strong opinion either way, you know. Look, the thing about us is we're sports bettors, okay? We're not sports books, right? There's a big difference. We don't have to put lines out on every fight, which means we don't have to bet every fight, where we can just pick our spots. There's some cards where I don't even want to bet at all, right? It's very rare. I usually do find a lot of spots because we get, like around 15 fights per card, and there's a lot of prop odds to look at. Actually, this week, I only have one money line play, and I have 6 prop bets, and I have 2 parlays, right? Last week, I had like 5 money line plays and like 1 prop bet or something like that. So, you know, every card calls for something different, but there's usually value you can find in basically every single card. I think I've only ever skipped on a card like once or twice in my entire betting career. So yeah, there's always value, in my opinion. You know, it's just 2 people having a fight at the end of the day, and there is a lot of value if you look hard enough. So, but in this one, but it doesn't mean that doesn't mean that there's value in every single fight, you know. In fact, there's obviously not, right? Because we'd all be rich if there was. And this fight, it's very hard for me to predict, right? Someone might go out there and get a knockout, which probably I'm predicting this fight doesn't go the distance, and then maybe they'll look good, you know, they'll look like they was the side all along, but it's hard to predict pre-fight, in my opinion. I'll just say straight up, I am leaning Rob Font. I just feel like he's obviously got the crisper boxing. Cody has faster hands, but it doesn't mean he has better boxing technique. Cody has faster hooks, in my opinion. Faster hands in general. I'm not really sure if he's got a faster jab. Rob Font's probably got a faster jab than him. But just hand speed in general, I'm going to put that. I'm going to favor Cody there. But Rob Font does have one of the best jabs in the business. We see him basically knock out Marlon Moraes with a jab, which was absolutely crazy to watch. Yeah, Rob Font is definitely surging. Cody Garbrandt, you know, he lost 3 in a row. Wasn't a good look for him. Got knocked out the same, you know, very similar way in all 3 of them fights, which was even a worse look. And then he bounced back with a win over Assunção. Assunção's a good fighter, so that was definitely a good win. He looked decent in the first round. it looked like he started to maybe not slow down in terms of cardio, but, like the momentum for him winning the fight slowed down in the second round. But then he got a huge knockout on the buzzer. So, that saved him the fight. It could have been 1-1 going into the third there. But Assunção's a good fighter. We saw what Assunção did to Rob Font a couple of years ago. He absolutely butchered Rob Font, really. I mean, he destroyed Rob Font. He hurt Rob Font. Assunção fucked up Rob Font, badly. So, yeah, it was a clear win. So, it's a hard one for me to pick. I don't want to go too in-depth on the stylistic matchups of both fighters. But I'll just say that I think Rob Font is going to be landing more often, and eventually he's probably going to be able to take Cody out. Cody is obviously going to come with big hooks and stuff, and he can put anyone out. We've seen him hurt Dominic Cruz, who's got one of the best chins in the division. Probably we saw him take that flush knee from Cejudo and still fight back, which is pretty crazy. He's got a very good chin. He dropped him multiple times. We don't have to talk about Cody's power. He put Thomas Almeida's lights out, knocks out most fighters that he fights if he wins, right? If he wins, he usually knocks them out. I mean, I think the decision against Dominic Cruz was probably the only decision he's went to in the UFC. Now, I could be wrong. You could correct me, but just off the top of my head, I feel like he's never been to a decision in the UFC other than Dominic Cruz. I'm almost certain about that. He knocked everyone out, Even he hurt TJ Dillashaw badly was it the first fight? I think it was the first fight, the end of the round. He almost stopped TJ Dillashaw. If there was like 20 seconds left of that round, he could still be the champion, right? He might have never lost to TJ. They probably wouldn't have done an immediate rematch. They definitely wouldn't have done an immediate rematch if Cody won the fight, right? They only gave the rematch to Cody because he hurt him and then because they wanted Cody to be a star, right? So, that he wouldn't have fought TJ again. Who would he have fought? I don't really know who was next in line at that time. Probably... Yeah, I'm not really sure because that was after the Cruz, right? So, yeah, I don't really know. But what I'm trying to say is this game is a game of inches. And if Cody knocks out TJ Dillashaw with 20 seconds left on the clock, everything's different. He might never go through that loss streak. Now, you do expect that he would have to get knocked out a couple of times just because that was like a hole in his game. And I'm not even ready to say that he's fixed that hole in his game. I don't think we saw much from that Assunção fight to say he's definitely fixed it. Because the thing is, Cody's always, had that head movement and stuff in the pocket, right? In his back pocket, like the head movement in the pocket. I mean, we see it against Cruz. But the thing about that Cruz fight is that you can't keep going back to that because he looks so good in that fight. But like, he's never looked that good again, right? And he never looked that good before that. So, and that was a long time ago now. That's like 4 or 5 fights ago, So I think this is going to be the 5th fight since that. So, I can't kind of like take too much from that fight because he hasn't showed that level of skills since that fight. He's 3-1, 1-3 since that fight. So anyway, I feel like Cody has probably definitely made improvements and he can definitely turn anyone's lights out at any point. We have seen Rob Font hurt before. So, that's always live. But my prediction is just going to be Rob Font to jab his face off and eventually get the stoppage, right? Rob Font via decision is like plus 500. Look, it's probably not going to go to decision, but I thought plus 500 was pretty juicy in my opinion. But you've got to think that this fight doesn't go to decision, But I wouldn't hate a little quarter of a unit shot on that or something. I'm not playing it myself. I'm not playing this fight. As you can tell, I don't have a big, opinion on this fight, but that is my opinion. I'm predicting Rob Font to win via 3rd round KO. Let's just say that. It'll take some time to get to Cody. He might get hurt. Cody will probably drop him with like a short left hook or something like he gets everyone. But I think eventually Rob Font's going to find the button and probably turn Cody's lights out. He's very sharp. Rob Font doesn't have that one-punch power, but he has that accurate power, that sniper power. So if that hits you, then, you can get knocked out even if the power isn't necessarily, unworldly behind it. It's the accuracy, it's the sniping of it that actually hurts you. So that's it, guys. I'm going to go with Rob Font to win via 3rd round TKO. So most exciting fight on the card, Damir Ismagulov versus Rafael Alves. I'm predicting Ismagulov to win via 3rd round TKO. The most inaccurate betting line on the card is Ben Rothwell to win inside the distance at plus 110. I'm predicting Ben Rothwell to win inside the distance in round 1. And then the next fight is the main event, Rob Font versus Cody Garbrandt. I'm predicting Rob Font to win via third round TKO, but that's a fucking close fight, and I don't have a huge opinion on that one. But I do have pretty big opinions on the two I mentioned before. So there we go, guys. As I say, sorry if the stream was a little bit low energy today, but yeah, it is what it is. I got it out there. We spoke about all the segments, and next week I will be back again with another episode of the Lucrative MMA Betting Podcast. Every single week I'll be putting this out. But obviously, this comes out like a couple days before fight time, so the lines are often changed. And I only speak about 3 segments, right? I speak about the most exciting fight, most inaccurate line, and the main event. So it's only 3 fights a week. If you want to get my breakdowns for all of the bets we have on our card, and if you want to get my official picks and my sports betting training courses, you can sign up via the link in my bio, lucrativemmabetting.com. Everything is in there. Not much more to say, guys. If you want to make money betting on MMA, join my service. You will make money from betting on MMA. It's as simple as that. That's it, guys. I'll just catch up with the chat quickly before I go, and then I'll be off. Anaconda is saying just jokes. Yeah, I know. Oh, Sweat, thanks for the stream. Thank you for the listen. Josh Ramnandon is from Guyana. Wow, that's cool. The first Guyanese fighter just fought Carlston Harris. Yes, and I bet on Carlston Harris. Big bet for me. 3 units, minus 150. Jazina Rosenstreich is from Suriname, which is next to Guyana. The UFC has become some crazy. Yes. Wow, that's cool that I have a listener from there, bro. I appreciate that. Definitely keep on tuning in, and hopefully we get some more Guyanese fighters, man. But that Carlston Harris is a very good fighter, very good wrestler. He's relentless. He's a clever fighter, like I was talking about before. You know, like David Dvorak, Demir Ismagulov. He won't do things that are going to put him in unnecessary danger. He showed off that he had a good chin because he got hurt by Christina Aguilera. Was able to wrap up the submission there. I think it was a Darce choke or Anaconda. So shout out to him. Shout out to me because I cashed a bet on him as well. And shout out to Guyana. Yeah, so thanks everyone for listening. And again, I'll be back next week. Good luck on all your bets this weekend. Hopefully you cash. We're trying to go 11 out of the last 13 weekends profitable. We had a small 1.9 unit loss last week. So hopefully we can bounce back this week. And I'm pretty confident, actually. So